More than 2,000 years ago, the Egyptian civilization was a mysterious history and mystery, even for researchers and historians. At that time, they wrote in their books about a civilization that spanned more than 3,000 years. But the Greek geographer and historian Strabo, in the 1st century AD, he revealed something that would be one of the secrets of the ancient world. Underground, he pointed to, in a place resembling sand dunes. He said, when you come across stone lions lined up next to each other, I know you've reached the catacombs. Strabo's whispers and his ancient discovery remained buried underground for hundreds of years, and after 1,800 years, the French researcher, Augustus Marit, came. He discovered the manuscripts of the historian Strabo, which showed him stone statues similar to the Sphinx between the Temple of Luxor and the courtyard of Amun. He set out along the path indicated by the manuscript until he reached an underground entrance to discover that he found stone coffins. Large, the weight of one of them reaches 100 tons. But the surprise was not in the discovery of the catacombs. Rather, it was in the mystery of ancient Serapeum. What is Serapeum? What is its purpose? And how giant boxes were carved? Move it underground? What is the relationship between the idols of Abizi and Amun-Ra? In the catacombs, the most important question is why they were all empty and without mummies. We will take you back to the ancient era of ancient history and open a strange aspect of the lost Egyptian civilization to reveal to you one of the biggest secrets of underground history. We tell you the story of the Serapeum and the catacombs. In the year 1850, the French government was established by sending a scientific delegation to Egypt to search for some ancient relics and manuscripts. Among that delegation was the famous French scientist, one of the first Egyptologists. Through his research, he found manuscripts dating back to the 1st century AD. The Greek historian Strabo recalled the discovery of a mysterious underground catacomb. So he stayed away from it in the ruins of Saqqara. He had been searching among the relics for a whole year. On the road between the Luxor Temple and the Amun Yard, in Karnak Temple, on the 1st of November, for the year 1851. He discovered an underground entrance that led him to the catacombs, which ancient manuscripts mention as a place for corpses. The stuffed bulls of Apis. Known as to understand the mystery of the Serapeum tombs, we must know what it means by the bulls of Apis. This is for the ancient pharaonic civilization. 5,000 years ago, when he gave birth to a bull alone to his mother. During the lightning, the ancient Egyptians, they look at it differently. And if some characteristics are achieved in it as a sign in the face and signs in the body, special care is given to him during his life and after his death, to be worshipped as an idol instead of God. After discovering Marit, over the course of 15 years, he studied and wrote a book called the Serapeum of Memphis. This is in French and has not been translated into any other language, despite the lack of books and sources that talk about this discovery. This made the matter more strange and ambiguous after we explained to you the meaning of the Serapeum. We will enter into its catacombs for the story of its discovery. Deep dive into the Egyptians' biggest gas. Underground. The catacombs of Apis are located under the Temple of Apis. Upon entering it, we find that it is composed of a large gallery and a small one. The great underground passages were opened during the reign of Basmati I. That is, he used it only without building it. The great gallery stretched through straight corridors for more than 300 meters combined. It consists of 24 stone tombs. It was carved from granite, syenite and diorite. It is a very hard stone. Cutting them today requires steel saws with diamond heads. The weight of the cover of those graves only reaches 30 tons, while the stone tomb weighs 70 tons. Zigzag distributed. As for the exhibition, it was used during the reign of King Ramses II. It contains 17 rooms carved into the rock. Marit mentioned in his book that when he entered the catacombs, he found all the coffins open and empty, without any trace of a mummy or a lapis. So I think at the beginning it was stolen, and by inspecting the rest of the graves, he found one grave that was still closed. So he tried with the workers to open it or even to remove the cover from it. But they could not, So they resorted to using dynamite and detonating part of the cover, which weighs 30 tons. To discover after blowing it up that it was also empty, then he moved to the smaller hall. There were mummies of humans and calves discovered. So he mentioned on the 58th page of his book and said, "We found a wooden coffin. It was smashed at the top but the human mummy. All funeral ceremonies were not touched. It bears the name of Prince Kamwas, son of Ramses II. The entire tomb has been transferred to the Louvre Museum in France. The smaller hall was closed and no one was allowed to visit it." The question that arises immediately and without thinking, why were all the stone tombs in the Great Hall is empty? If we take Marit's story that she was stolen, we fall here at a crossroads. Either it was actually stolen from the mummies thieves in ancient history, or it was stolen after Marit discovered it and fabricated that story to dismiss any accusation or investigation? Thinking logically, we find that both hypotheses. However, if we assume that it was stolen by mummies thieves, they would not have stolen only the Great Hall, and left the small hall full of gold, and also if Marit was the perpetrator, it would have been easy for him to claim the same thing in the lesser hall, and emptying it of the contents without anyone noticing. Why then leave it teeming with treasures? This is first, and secondly in the 24 graves. In the Great Hall, Marit found one closed grave. He blew it up with dynamite. Why didn't the tomb thieves open it and steal it as they did in the rest? So the logical answer is that the stone tombs were like this from time immemorial. It was not stolen or touched, as the researchers thought. Here, a bigger mystery is born about the purpose of these tombs and the fact that they were built. And why did you make this superior geometry and purity? The mystery of the Serapeum begins with how the underground catacombs were built. As we find the entrance to the tomb width of 320 centimeters. That is, it only accommodates the grave in a longitudinal manner. From the inside, it takes a long and extended shape. In a flat way, which in itself is a matter, confusing, in order to dig such basements and with such precision. We need modern tunnel boring machines. How could the ancient Egyptians dig it in such an equal way? Once you get to the graves, we find it very narrow. Which makes us ask another question: how was it moved and put in place? With such a huge size and such a narrow space? Entering a single stone tomb weighing 100 tons. 500 workers are needed. If we assume that each worker pulls 200 kilograms. Also, the presence of 500 people in a confined space. They carry fiery torches to see. In those dark basements, it leads to suffocation due to the burning of oxygen. And it makes the process of moving and dragging impossible, so how could they enter 24 graves? Giant in this place and given the place in which the coffins were placed, we find that it is low from the surface of the earth, which makes it impossible for anyone to place it in this place. The space is only enough for a few people. Assuming that the tomb room can accommodate 10 people. The weight of the tomb is 100 tons, or 100,000 kilograms. Is it reasonable for a person to move or bear the weight of 10,000 kilograms? This is impossible. Some go on to assume that these coffins were transported by giants. It is an unacceptable assumption, because those catacombs are narrow and cannot accommodate them. And if it is assumed that they used ropes and beams, as some explain, the method of placing the last stone on top of the pyramid, this assumption cannot be applied here, because of the narrow space and the closed stone. Here we find ourselves unable to explain the transportation of these giant boxes inside the terrifying catacombs, and we do not yet understand how it was made. What is the purpose of it and what the ancient Egyptians bore that hardship and then left empty at the time? Which media sheds light on the pyramids and civilization. Above the ground, he hides the memory of the Serapeum underneath, despite being a bigger mystery than the Egyptian civilization above the ground. Because of these complex matters, many researchers and scientists believed a strange technology existed among the ancient Egyptians. Researcher Christopher Down mentioned it in his book, The Lost Technology in Egyptian Civilization, a book that bears many testimonies and proofs. Technology existed thousands of years ago, and in a way that humanity has not known before. When some people hear this book, he thinks it contains stories of aliens and wondrous creatures. which is completely wrong since Christopher was baptized on a field called geometric precision in the interpretation of Egyptian civilization. He mentioned that the ancient Egyptians used highly developed technology in engineering and construction, by calculating the sides, to obtain a right angle with an accuracy of 90 degrees. It requires high standards because the simple tools. It does not give 100% accuracy. So Christopher measured the handling of the roof of the tomb in the Serapeum and the degree of its applicability to the pregnant woman. It was found to be completely flat to the point that it does not even allow light to enter. This indicates that these boxes were built professionally. It is known that cutting stone with this hardness may lead to a slight deviation on length or width. But the angle was 90 degrees. Completely without any decimal places. This made the researchers absolutely certain that these stones were not cut in primitive ways at all. In comparison with one of the graves discovered from later eras, we find that it is not disciplined and tortuous. Which is what is carved in primitive ways. Something possible. But the tombs of the Serapeum, with that great engineering precision, can only be carved with very sophisticated tools. Christopher says in his book that he sent his study on the tombs of Serapeum to 4 giant parts factories in America. And all of them confirmed the impossibility of establishing those tombs with primitive things. Hence confirms that the technology is wondrous. It completely disappeared from the Egyptian civilization. A technology whose greatness cannot be imagined, and the strange thing is where it suddenly disappeared. From existence after an in-depth study of Serapeum, we find that the theory of its construction for apis and mummies is a very weak theory. For a number of reasons, the most important of which is if it really was. Where are the funerary inscriptions on it? By looking at the apparent inscriptions, we find that they were carved after successive eras, and this appears through the weakness of the sculpture compared to the accuracy of the design. Is it possible that he designed that engineering? Does that poor sculpting? And also when it was built 4 meters long and a height of 330 centimeters, which is 4 times larger than the calf. And if it was really for bulls, would it be built with higher accuracy? Of the accuracy of the royal tombs? The initial answer to this riddle? The Serapeum coffins are not tombs. They are mystery boxes. At first glance, we find that they are of different sizes and stones. It is noted that the accuracy of the sculpture appears from the inside only. On the face of it, as it is seen abroad. The dents and the lack of a roof. This fully confirms that the inside is more important than the outside. And also by looking at the walls of the boxes, we find that it is very thick and carved from one piece, with a lid that weighs 30 tons. And that data indicates something certain that these funds, designed to withstand high pressure. So the tip of the string is in boxes. It is designed to withstand high pressure. What is the point of that? Some people think that they were like batteries to generate electricity. They need great pressure and endurance over time. It was emptied and its traces remained empty, as there is a lot of evidence proving that the ancient Egyptians knew electricity in the past. This is through their inscriptions, but this theory is invalidated. Something that Egyptologists have noticed. That some of those boxes inside were rough, and does this indicate that they are incomplete? What made the ancient Egyptians suddenly stand up? About job? And when those who came after them did not finish carving and polishing it, this matter indicates to us a result that may be terrifying. And it is that there is something strange that led to a collective annihilation of the building of the first civilization. The pharaohs came after them as inheritors of that civilization. They just engraved their names and accomplishments. This is what the presence of highly engineered constructions and carved monuments. In a primitive way, the Egyptians who built civilization. The ancient Egyptians were a people who preceded the pharaohs by far. Something mysterious happened to them and destroyed them all, with all the advanced technology which they had. Which may have been based on a technology that we did not reach. To this day, the Serapeum boxes remain a mystery of gas. The first Egyptian civilization buried underground.